I want to introduce a man who, let me tell you a fun fact, a man who does not sleep, a man who treats the climate emergency as the emergency it is. Whether it's 4 a.m. in the morning or 7 p.m. or a Saturday or a Sunday, it doesn't matter. You will receive the phone call for some to do something for Africa, with Africa. President Adesina.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my dear brother Patrick Bakwesian. If you say I don't sleep, I don't know what you do. I think you have incredible renewable energy. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says you can call at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, so you keep us all awake. Thank you for all you do. Your Excellency, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, thank you, Chair of the Global Center on Adaptation, my dear brother Feke. Your Excellencies, President Macky Sall, Chairman of the African Union and President of Senegal, Your Excellency President Nana Akufo-Addo, President, Your Excellency President Felix Tshisekedi, my dear sister, United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed, Chairman, Chairperson Musa Faki of the African Union Commission, my dear sister Ngozi, DG of WTO, my sister Kristalina Georgieva of the MD of the IMF, development finance ministers all around here, from Europe, from Africa, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I wish to thank you very much for honoring the invitation from former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, myself, President Macky Sall, and also from Patrick, and of course, for all of you to be here today. I wish to thank you, Ahmed Abu Taleb, the Mayor of Rotterdam, for your great hospitality for having us here. You are all here because you are friends of Africa. Africa is facing three major challenges, which are called the 3 C's: COVID, climate, and conflict. The solution to the 3 C's is the same. 3 F's: finance, finance, and finance. Africa was still dealing with the financing recovery from COVID when conflict broke out as Russia invaded Ukraine, triggering soaring food prices and inflation. To forestall potential food crisis in Africa from Russia's war in Ukraine, the African Development Bank announced on May 29th a $1.5 billion Africa Emergency Food Production Facility. The facility, to support 20 million farmers, will provide access to climate-resilient seeds for maize, for wheat, for rice and soybeans, and support the production of 38 million metric tons of food valued at $12 billion. The approvals on the facility have been incredibly fast. Within 60 days, the bank has approved $1.13 billion for operations in 24 countries, and we expect to reach 35 countries at the end of this month. Your Excellencies, Africa now needs a lot of financing to tackle climate change, as you have heard. The continent is warming up faster than any region of the world, as predictions from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change show that the critical global warming levels will be reached much earlier in Africa. The effects will be devastating: loss of crops, decimation of livestock populations and livelihoods of pastoralists, while child wasting will increase by 37% in West Africa and 25% in East Africa. A 1-degree increase in temperature is also going to be associated with 11% greater risk of conflict in Africa, as it triggers weather-related disasters and conflicts, with already 4.3 million Africans already displaced due to climate change. According to the estimates of the African Development Bank, GDP losses per capita could rise as high as 16 to 64% under the high warming scenario. In the face of this deluge, Africa does not have the resources to tackle climate change. The continent receives only 3% of global climate financing, and if this trend continues, Africa's climate financing gap will reach $100 billion to $127 billion per year through 2030. The current financing of climate in the world is not meeting the needs of Africa. New estimates from the African Development Bank in our African Economic Outlook actually shows that Africa will need between $1.3 to $1.6 trillion between 2020 and 2030, and that comes down to roughly $118 billion to $145 billion annually to implement its commitments to the Paris Agreement and also the nationally determined contributions. The African Adaptation Acceleration Program, AAAP, is Africa's own program, supported by African heads of state, to mobilize more resources for climate change and to advance the objectives of the African Adaptation Initiative. The African Development Bank and the Global Center for Adaptation, we are mobilizing $25 billion for this program, which is the largest ever climate adaptation effort globally, for which the African Development Bank has already committed $12.5 billion. The AAAP has an upstream facility, as you have heard, at the GCA, and a downstream facility at the African Development Bank. The upstream facility, which needs capitalization of $250 million, will help to mainstream solutions on climate adaptation. The downstream facility at the bank, to be capitalized at $1.75 billion, will help to leverage additional climate finance for adaptation by a factor of 4 times to deliver $7 billion of additional adaptation finance. The GCA and the African Development Bank are already showing very good results on the AAAP. In fact, the AAAP's upstream facility at the GCA with Patrick and their team has already helped to generate $3 billion of mainstreamed climate adaptation investments by the African Development Bank, from agriculture to energy to transport to water and sanitation. I wish to thank you very much, Alok, and also Vijay from the UK for your delivery on your promise of £20 million for the upstream facility at the GCA, which has already been fully disbursed. We now need full financing of the balance of $12.5 billion for the AAAP. Your Excellencies, the African Development Fund's 16th replenishment now presents such a wonderful opportunity we must not miss. Never have the stakes been so high for Africa's low-income and fragile states that depend on the ADF. 9 out of the 10 countries most vulnerable to climate change in the world are in sub-Saharan Africa, and all of them, 100%, are all ADF countries. Yet the ADF countries do not have access to global finance on climate. To change this, the ADF has introduced what we call the Climate Action Window. This window is hoping to mobilize between $4 billion to $13 billion for climate adaptation for these ADF highly vulnerable countries. What will it do? It will be used to support 20 million farmers with access to climate-resilient agricultural technologies. Another 20 million farmers to get access, including pastoralists, to weather-indexed crop insurance, reviving 1 million hectares of degraded land and providing access for about 9.65 million people in terms of renewable energy. That's the scale of action that we are going to be forcing and driving. Commitments made by developed countries to provide $100 billion annually in climate finance for developing countries are long overdue. Your Excellencies, Africa can no longer wait. This is the time to support the African Adaptation Acceleration Program with the money that it needs. This is the time to support as well the African Development Fund's 16th replenishment. This is the time to support the Climate Action Window of the ADF 16th replenishment. Your Excellencies, present here today are action shapers, from heads of state and government to the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, the African Union Commission's chairperson, the Vice President of the European Union Commission, development ministers, to heads of global financial institutions, from the head of IMF, the head of WTO, bilateral agencies, multilateral development banks, and many more. If there was ever a group that can shape success and deliver climate adaptation for Africa, it is the leaders in this room today. You are the doers, and that's why you are here. So let's rise and deliver for Africa. Let's secure our common future. Let's put up the resources for climate adaptation in Africa. The past got us to where we are now. Now let us create a new path, a new future, our common future, where every African can thrive in a climate-secure world. We are grateful once again for coming. Thank you very much.